In this episode, we're going to cover SEMA 2024 show coverage from CarShowz.com. We are going to discuss the events surrounding SEMA throughout the week, the skid pad, the Toyo Tires tread pass area brought a lot of awesome builds. We talk about that. So we're getting online with our friend Streamline Customs, Joe Nelson, to discuss the crazy builds, the different builds throughout the show, the different events, Optima batteries, the awesome booths and the JDM and American Muscle trucks. Are just so many builds throughout SEMA to see. We're also going to cover the business area side of it and our top 10 builds. We're going to go through those as well. Joe's also going to talk a bit about his current project and what he has going on with his business, Streamline Customs. What's going on? Jeff Cantagallo here with CarShowz Talk Podcast. I got Joe Nelson, Streamline Customs, longtime friend. I wanted to get Joe on and discuss SEMA recap. So I've been working on putting together SEMA coverage, and we did a bunch of video, we did a bunch of audio, capturing our favorite builds throughout SEMA. Joe attended the event from a collision automotive auto body perspective. So checking out the builds, but also checking out the business side of SEMA. So Joe, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
So Streamline Customs, give us some background on Streamline Customs. When you got started, what's the foundation of the business?
Been in the industry a long time, started from a young age. Streamline Customs has been a long time dream. So just like any real entrepreneur, I've tried, I've failed. In my eyes, I thought I failed. Got discouraged and just kind of walked away from it, but it's never really left me. So now we're bringing it back. Streamline Customs is a shop that, we know the collision aspect of it from the corporate side of it, as well as the enthusiast side. But we also do custom work too.
So you and we've been in the same, up in the Northeast here. So we've been in kind of the same circle for a while. You and I connected, I guess, through social media. I know I've been following you and your work for a period of time. I just wanted to give people kind of a background on us and how we met and what our relationship is. It's been pretty good amount of years now. I guess we've known each other.
Easily 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Never forget the day we met. It's in one of my transitions of running the shop, doing my thing. I still say to this day, I think you kind of sent something from post on social media with me, and you just reach out to me randomly, and it's been history since. We moved on with our lives, we've grown up, but the bond with us still hasn't. Just like now, we pick up like it never dropped off.
I think that's one of the great things just with the automotive industry, right? You build that family, you build that network, and like for me, like I've served in the military. And it's the same thing, right? There's a lot of folks that I've met over the years, and you just, like you said, you have that bond, and you and I can, we may not talk for a month, couple months, but then when we pick up the phone, it's just like we were hanging out yesterday. I think it was pretty cool that we both were able to go to SEMA this year. Like, so for me, your family's deep into the automotive, industry and the scene. My daughters, I've raised pretty much, we've been going to shows and such. So my oldest, that she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, right? She's in college down in North Carolina. Brought her to shows, and she's done, right? She's like, I appreciate it, and she'd go and likes my TikToks and Instagrams and such, but she's like, I'm done. Now my youngest, she's hungry, right? She's like ready to build a car, and so she's 17 now, so 16 is the age that you can actually attend SEMA. So she's like, Dad, I want to go to SEMA. I'm like, Vegas, 16-year-old young lady, but I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. So this year, obviously, she turned 17, so I'm like, let's plan the trip. And we planned the trip. So it was my wife and my youngest. And my youngest, I'm telling you, Joe, she's a beast, like behind the camera and stuff. Like when I go to edit photos now, I can't tell the difference if it's hers or mine, to be honest with you. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I passed on my skill set and experience to her, right?
So it's funny you even say that, Jeff. Literally, before what we're doing now, this interview, the baby, 17-year-old, he's the last one in my tribe of 5. We have been building his car, 2005 Acura TL, and Just finished the car today, got him on the road. He literally just left the house, and I mean, it was $1,000 car, but they have that car bug, and I mean, the kid works two jobs to get everything done that I've done on his car. So yeah, I can relate.
The grind and hustle is there, and the passion, and that's what I like. Is I've always, I mean, you know how it is as you're parenting. You want to give your kids the tools they need, but you don't want to overwhelm them to the point where they're like my oldest. I feel like I've brought her to maybe too many shows to where she's like, I'm good. Youngest is like, yeah, let's keep going. So it's that balance, I guess, is my point.
Right.
So my wife, she grew up around old school American muscle, so she loves it. Again, my youngest, this was the first year heading out there. So I guess I want to dive into just, we're going to talk about our favorite builds in a bit here, but I want to kind of dive into the format of SEMA and I guess Vegas from a perspective as if people have never experienced it, right? So, I mean, obviously, there's a ton of automotive enthusiasts. There's people that are friends, that we're friends with that have been there a million times, and they get it, and they're just like, they go in and they do their thing and they come home, right? But
Right.
there's a ton of people out there that don't have access to SEMA. So obviously, SEMA stands for Specialty Equipment Marketing Association.
Hmm.
It's a trade show where it's not open to the public, right? So it's literally obviously folks in the trade in the automotive industry that can gain access. So you got your buyers, you have your exhibitors, you have your media can attend, which we registered as media, and then there are events surrounding SEMA that you can attend, like SEMA Fest. They used to have SEMA Ignited, to where they bring in some drift exhibitions and such, and then
Right.
some bands and that kind of thing. So this was your first time attending SEMA, correct?
Yeah. And it's funny, really, to even say that. I've been in this industry for years, from car enthusiasts. I think I don't really have a like this whole story where me and my pops did the whole car thing. My dad was in the cars, but I sort of got the bug on my own. I've had my hands on a lot of cars that have actually been to SEMA, and yet I haven't been to this year. It was great. For me, it was like the additional fire already to my storm, both on the enthusiast side and the business side. I'm like a lot of other guys. I'm the grunt. I get dirty. I don't worry with so much about the business side. I do, but not as much as I should. And that's what I'm honing on now. But like I said, I'm the grunt. So when I go to a show, I'm looking at the craftsmanship. I'm looking at the body lines. I'm looking at the gaps. I'm looking at the detail. It's funny when my wife even called me on it. She was like, "Well, how's the show going?" Because I went this year on my own. It took me 2 years. I applied under my business the previous 2 years and just didn't get it. And this year was the first. I'm already planning for next year. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to miss this again. It was great.
I think that comes with age and maturity, to be honest with you. And I'm not secretly calling us old, but back in the day, you're used to being in the trenches. You're used to making a name for yourself. And I think now, like even for me, just doing photography, and it's a hobby for me though, right? So that's the difference, is your passion, your energy is in your business, which you're, involved in the automotive scene on a daily basis. I am to an extent, but I don't have to rely on it as, for my income. But I think the cool part about bringing you in here is like you and I, our mindsets are very the same. Like it's like, I almost feel like we can take a snapshot of our brain and, the way we think.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is now is being where we are in our, in our lives now, I feel like, it's important to network. It's important to take your business or what you're doing to the next level. And for years, I've always tried to build the networks and bring people in and create that circle and kind of create a foundation, like under the CarShowz brand, for example.
Hmm.
What I've learned over the years is people have their own agendas. They have their own, thing that they want to accomplish, which is fine, but it doesn't necessarily match with what I'm trying to do, right? So like I'm starting to learn now is I don't want to have to rely on others or depend on others. I want to try to take what I'm doing and expand myself. Like, so for example, going to SEMA and doing the networking and doing the photography and doing the videos and spreading our brand that way. versus just latching onto something and trying to be loyal, but you're not building yourself and your brand if you're trying to help boost others. Does that make sense? It has to be a balance, I guess is my point.
Nah, it makes perfect sense, at least for me. History has shown you as well, some other people know where I have, my loyalty is strong. I'm an open book. You do me right, I do you right. But in the past, that loyalty hasn't got me where I needed to be. This year, SEMA, honestly though, I went with a full agenda. It's everything's about Streamline Customs. I know the business from, like I said, the corporate level. I've worked for 3 insurance carriers, including USAA. And I have a deep respect for the military, even more now working for them. When I've worked for them, I met so many people at this event. It was, I don't want to say heart wrenching, but it was educational because I talked to people from, you might look at them as a gang member from one aspect because we come from different backgrounds and cultures. And sitting down talking to that person, they were all about business. They told me things I didn't know. It was educational. The other aspect of it is I looked at the very car celebrities that I watch on TV on a regular basis. And a lot of those guys are, one, a lot taller than I thought in person. A lot taller than I thought in person. But two, they were very willing to share the information and the tips so, yeah, I'm not on their level. My work is very high quality. But you can always learn. So I ask specific questions just to get the information I need and to learn and grow from it.
So I think that's a perfect segue into talking, diving into the foundation of SEMA, right? Because a lot of automotive enthusiasts and folks that just attend car shows and such are looking at it for the builds. Of course, they're sitting home and they're keyboard warriors because they're like, oh, Bluetooth drive shaft and move this and move that. And the absolute foundation of SEMA is product marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the latest technology is going to be displayed on those vehicles. Folks are grinding to build these vehicles to get them to SEMA. But I think it's cool because, like, again, it's segueing into what is SEMA and like what outside of the builds, the networking piece, like you said. I mean, I've PSC Dorian. He's one of the sponsors for LST that I met.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a lot of diesel builds and such out of Texas. And we ran into him, and he was strictly there to do classes throughout the week for SEMA. So SEMA, not only are you going through, you got first the layout of SEMA is insane, right? So you got to have a good pair of shoes. We always joke about that, right?
Yes, indeed, because I came back home with blisters.
Yep, absolutely. I wear a good pair of shoes, brand new, and I still have blisters.
Yep.
So you have the Las Vegas Convention Center. So SEMA's in Vegas, obviously. So you got the Central Hall, North Hall, West Hall, South Halls, and then the outdoors are enormous as well. And there's a burnout pad, skid pad. You got Nitro Circus doing demonstrations, TIS wheels. They have huge booths throughout. It's just massive, right?
Yes.
So you go there to check the builds out, but the halls are divided up. I mean, you have your collision and auto body stuff. You have your, like, there was like the West Hall, or I think it was West or North. It was literally overlanding and just nothing but trucks.
That was West Hall.
Okay.
And it's funny you brought that up because literally my first day walking in there, I walked right into the collision and refinishing hall, which is my business. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so the first thing my agenda was to meet up with my vendor who I dealt with, which is Revolt Auto Paint. History with them is, the young lady Tammy Miller. I've been dealing with her since Tamco Paint, and
Okay.
I have followed her 2 or 3 different companies, which now Revolt is her own. So my first,
Oh, cool.
yeah, my first agenda was to meet her in person, meet and greet. And then amongst that, I went and seen some of the other vendors I normally deal with, and some new ones. I am happy to say is, like, after that first day, it stayed on my mind. I got to get me one of those CNC plasma cutting machines. It's on the list. I'm going to make it happen. That's growth for Streamline Customs.
And you've your business, I know when you and I first met was based out of Jersey, right? And you
Yes,
had
sir.
a your shop, you had a couple of shops I think up in Jersey, right?
Yes, sir. I did. Yeah.
And I mean they were good sized shops too.
Yeah. The one, especially 5,000 square foot building, fenced in, parking lot. I mean, I can accommodate everything, and I was a one man show.
And
Try
then
to.
you relocated down here to Maryland.
Yes.
Just built you have a new shop locally to you, so that's convenient. I've been there. You've helped me out. You've done stuff to our daughter's car and stuff. So that, that was cool. Yeah. So I think it's cool now because it's just watching you. I always enjoy watching friends grow. And I'm more intrigued to see, and that's why, like, for you, just reaching out to you, because I want to know, like, I want to know what you're thinking, kind of, because what impresses me is just the steps that people are taking to get to where they are, right? So, like, as you're saying, going through SEMA, trying to figure out the tools and the techniques and what can help you. And so the plasma cutter, for example,
Hmm.
and again, just building SEMA and again, it's the builds are important and fun and cool to see and figure out what aftermarket parts people are using, but the tools that are throughout SEMA. And then you have Apex too, that's a part of SEMA, that's in a completely different convention center for the week. And I don't know if you had a chance to attend that. I
Nah.
didn't, but I was way overwhelmed with SEMA.
Yeah, neither did
Um,
I. Again, that's on the list for next year. Before I even left the BWI airport, I was literally already networking. I met a gentleman who owned his own media business, who filmed shows like OCC and no Richard Rawlings and this, that, and the other. I mean, we sat next to each other, so the whole flight was nothing but business. Great guy to have in a Rolodex, and I'm hoping that'll work out. But
yeah.
like I said, it's I hadn't even left Baltimore area and was already meeting people and starting to network.
Even just walking through for me, so we talked about the automotive collision side, the
Hmm.
entire hall. It was cool because there was people doing raps, rapping cars and such, and there was spokespeople talking and explaining the process as people are sitting there rapping supercars, for example,
Hmm.
window tinting. There was one window tinting booth. Like, that's the other thing that blows my mind is just setting up the booths in general. Like, it's such a massive undertaking to get this show off the ground, right? I mean, like the day of, like, we flew in Monday, we typically go grab our media credentials, walk around, and there's forklifts and there's pallets and there's crates, and it's just so massive. And the booths are a lot of the booths are so massive, right? Because there's multiple vehicles in some of them, and the lights, and it's just so cool, like, to walk through there. And
Nice.
just checking out all the tools and technology was fun, just for me.
I mean, like I said, my first time there, it was a treat. It was not only a bucket list thing, but if you're in the industry and you haven't been there, you're missing out. I don't want to sound like a noob, but I look at it really for what it is. Because, like I said, I went there with an agenda. I love the cars. Don't get me wrong. I look at them for what they are from a builder and collision aspect, the networking and the love that was shown from the veterans that do go there. I mean, we're talking from my hotel all the way up. Like, I was literally lost being up front, and I had people explain it to me in detail, give me the business cards. You need anything, this, that, and the other. I've been coming here for 26 years, and they used to tell me about the old days. And the energy there is what really did it for me. Like I said, the cars are great. I love it. Been doing that aspect of it. This is a different side of the industry that I've seen. Really did.
Yeah, it's so massive. I mean, just again, even just the coordination. I mean, like we said, the Vegas Convention Center is full, right, from hall to hall, outdoors. They get multiple hotels on board, for
Hmm.
discounts and such. They get airline discounts, and so for us, like, every time I've gone, we've stayed right on the strip, right at Paris, and I try to do that for the convenience of, because they offer shuttles from the hotel to the convention center. But this time we switched it up a little bit. I Ubered everywhere we could. I'm gonna say that F1 is absolutely has destroyed that city. my opinion, just from there's scaffolding everywhere. There's grandstands. Like we walked out. Typically you can walk out front on the strip in Paris, and you can look across, and the Bellagios there, and you can see the fountains. Well, you can't see them anymore because there's grandstands there, right? And then there's temporary bridges, and so we decided to Uber from airport to the hotel. We had the flexibility to take the shuttle, but we didn't. We ended up taking the monorail, which was convenient because that was right behind our hotel as well. And I know you and I had talked. I think you monorailed around as well, right?
Nah,
Or just
actually,
oh, you didn't?
no.
Okay.
I did my homework. Like I said, being first there, paid for monorail tickets for the whole week. Didn't use any of them. I was in what they called Old Vegas. So my hotel was the Grand Hotel and Casino, which hindsight was an awesome spot. I was
Nice.
literally across the street from the Mob Museum. There is a restaurant that does the kickoff SEMA party.
Yeah, hogs and heifers.
Yep, right across the street
Yeah, so
from
they
them.
do the mini truck Hall of Fame there on Monday.
Yep, that was awesome.
Yep.
Talked to a lot of people there, and as a tourist, I was like a block away from Fremont, which was another treat in itself. So,
So you were able to shuttle into the convention center, or how did you get in?
yep, shuttle in. I had to
Okay.
catch it. I had to catch it at the Golden Nugget,
Okay.
block away, block and a half away from my hotel. So I was fine. So, like I said,
Yeah. So if you can get a hotel or a location that offers shuttle or closer to the monorail, I mean that's the way to go in my opinion to get around the city.
yes,
And the monorail runs late, and I think the shuttles run throughout the morning, and then starts early, like or late afternoon or early evening to get you back to your hotel. I think
yeah,
was
they
that the
run.
case this year? I think.
Yeah, they run roughly. I think it was 7, 8 o'clock till like 10:30, and then they didn't
Yep.
start back up again till 3, 3:30 till like 6, 6:30.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Okay. Good. I'm glad you were able to get around. Sorry you wasted your money on the monorail tickets.
Cost of doing business.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it was like the just knowing, we had the shuttle was there, knowing, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I can get around, especially with the family. If it was just me, I wouldn't care. I'd figure it out. You know what I mean? But
Well, yeah, this year I
that's
actually
good.
did. Yeah, I did go by myself this year. Next year I learned a little bit of the ropes, so it'll be more of a family deal. The wife, the kids, still business trip, but at least they will be able to go like they wanted to this year.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about the SEMA layout. I mean, there's multiple halls, there's outdoors. We talked about there's obviously multiple hotels that are affiliated or that join up for with SEMA for the week for discounts and shuttling and getting around town and such. Let's kind of dive into some of our favorite builds or some of the unique builds and stuff that we kind of ran into.
Hmm.
And I can tell you there's a few gotchas for me because like my goal is like from a media standpoint, you want to go in and you want to cover as much as you can, right? So I went in this year with the mentality of like, let's go in, let's just have a good time. I'm not killing myself, right? So, and we did, and we actually broke up our week, because and to give folks that have never attended SEMA some perspective is like if you go, so the show's from Tuesday to Friday, right? So
Right.
a lot of people typically will fly in Monday. They'll go over to the Hogs and Heifers or whatever it is for the Mini Truck and Hall of Fame and hang out at Fremont Street or even just around the show because there's always stuff going on
Hmm.
throughout the week. There's car meets and all kinds of stuff, right? So the show's from Tuesday to Friday. So we typically fly in Monday, we'll leave Saturday. The halls are massive, right? So if you plan it out, it's typically you'll complete one hall a day, maybe, right? Because some of the halls, the central hall is obviously pretty big. Some
Hmm.
of the other halls are smaller. Plus, you have all the outdoor stuff. So, like they say, you'll never be able to see everything in the week, which I haven't. I mean, because you'll walk through and you try to get through from a media standpoint. You try to get through and get as much as you can before the crowds come in because it's just insane and
Well,
nobody gets out of your way. You know,
yeah, I mean, I can tell you from if you're going there for business, like majority of us are, not going to even lie, I spent a lot of time in the collision, every finishing portion of the halls. I mean, that's what I do. So I've talked to companies from equipment standpoint to software standpoint, paint. There was even other companies that I kind of heard a twinkling of out in the industry, seeing they had a booth there at SEMA and had a very in depth conversation with the rep. So yeah, it all depends on what really your agenda is. I did make my way around a lot inside and outside, but I will probably say a good portion of my visit was, the collision and refinishing portion of it.
So I think that brings up a good point. The SEMA they send out books, right? Massive books, and they
Yes.
got these on site too, the pocket guides. So back to your point, Joe, from a business standpoint, the books are nice because they offer there's maps of the layouts and where everybody is, basically inside and outside, or actually inside most of the halls. So I think it's important to plan your trip, and if you're networking or you, like you said, you're painter, you're the paint supply company, you knew where to go. You knew right away, you wanted to sync up with them. So just from a networking standpoint, plan your trip. SEMA does a really good job laying everything out as far as where everybody is and what booths and such.
Yes, they do.
Again, two different perspectives. I mean, I'm covering from a media standpoint, so I'm trying to blast through most of the halls and get what I can. But from a business standpoint, you can plan out your visit. Kind of if you get some free time, plan some free time in there, maybe mosey around and see if there's other booths or such that you didn't catch, when you were planning, and there might be some other tools or some other businesses that you can network with while you're there.
Right.
I think that's cool.
Part of my deal is I'm trying to get a little bit more into the resale side of things. So West Hall, let's face it, especially in our region of Maryland, there's a lot of trucks. I mean, I'm an import guy at heart. I've worked in restoration shops, so yeah, I can do a muscle car, hot rod, and also have a lifted truck. Nothing to the level of what some of those guys were out there. There's a big market of it, so I spent a lot of time in the West Hall as well, and made some good, new ties.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to go through here, because they had racing and performance, which was cool because there was all different kind of race teams and such in there, race cars and exhausts and engines and all kinds of stuff. And then you have like we talked about, your collision repair and refinish. There's wheels and accessories. I mean, it's massive. It's insane. You got your mobile electronics and technology, Rockford Fosgate, Kicker, Serwin Vega, all those guys were set up. You got your trucks, SUVs, and off-road stuff in another hall. So yeah, I mean, it's very well organized.
Yeah.
I mean, they make it easy for you, really, at the end of the day. And these pocket guides are cool, but there's also an app, right? So, like my daughter, she downloaded the app and she's like checking, hey, where's Kicker? Let's go visit Kicker. Let's go visit these guys.
So did I. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what got me around the app, and I guess the fact that after like the third day, I found out about the tunnels underneath of the convention center. So that was a little more forgiving on my feet, but
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to ride the tunnels. I knew they were there. I know it's a big thing. But yeah, so you had a chance to check out the Tesla tunnels, the underground.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I did. Great. You would think with the lines it'd be longer than it was, but they were pretty organized.
That's cool.
And for me,
it's neat.
Yeah, it actually is. For the first time, me going there, SEMA put on a great job. I mean, everything was in place. It wasn't too crazy. There was answers for everything. So, again, if you haven't gone, you're missing out.
So let's touch on some of the builds real quick, and I want to talk about a couple of the gotchas that actually got me. So like I was saying earlier, from a media standpoint, you try to blast around, you try to get coverage. As we're posting to social media, and we're trying to do all the platforms now. I even started up TikTok this year because my daughter has convinced me to do it.
Took me a while, but Instagram. Yeah, I got a page too.
Yeah, I just I was hesitant, but I'm like, it's what, again, as we grow older and we get experience, and you want to network and you want to put your name out there, this is just another method to do that, and it's free, right, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the twin turbo Miata that had the Lamborghini. So of course, I blast over, I get pictures, start posting it up, and then like it's just a twin turbo. What is it? An LT4 with Lambo intakes or something on it, I think. Right?
Yeah.
I thought. but it got me. I'm gonna be honest with you. My buddy Phil shot me a message. He's like, "Dude, I think there's an LS in that car," and and so what got me. This is actually a good, a good lesson for folks. Again, media, right? I'm trying to do my research. I'm trying to Google. I'm trying to figure out who's building these cars, because I want to tag people and give credit and such, right?
Right.
And I came across, I'm not going to say which website, but a very well known car automotive website. And I'm like, okay, they got to be a reliable resource. And they weren't, because they were quick to post a picture and video and, hey, Lamborghini powered, blah, blah, blah. And my buddy Phil messaged me. He's like, hey, yeah, you might want to. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, let me check. And I'm like, yep, you're right. And sure enough, I dug a little deeper and I learned. But it was cool though. It was sitting outside the central hall and it was sitting there and it was cool. I mean, it was a cool ride. And I'll throw some pictures up here. So when you were walking around, did you see that ride?
Yeah, I did. And honestly, I mean, for me, I didn't give it that much of a detailed look. Like I looked at it and I thought it was pretty cool. But I'm looking at the whole canvas of it. And I'm like, I said to another guy, he's another car buddy from Orlando who I met, I'm like, listen, this car is getting way more hype than it deserves. So it was funny. The next day, I started seeing all of the media blasts, and then noticed the car wasn't there no more the next day either. And I was like, wow.
So just from that's your eye right there, right? I mean, you're obviously customizing vehicles and the body lines and such. The car didn't flow from a proportion standpoint at all, right?
That's exactly what I was looking at.
You're like, yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was looking at. The flow of the car, the body lines, this, and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. I'm not so much a horsepower guy like that. Like I like it, but I look at the whole canvas. It just comes from my years of doing what I do. And I was like, yeah, this car is getting way more hype than what it really deserves. And I just kind of walked away from it. It was funny, like I said, the next day. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I actually took some pictures of it. Like I liked it enough, at least for that much.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, so I'm the type of dude where I'm like, if it's something unique and somebody wants to think out of the box and do their thing, I'm like, I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm definitely not a keyboard warrior where I'm sitting and just like smashing people, and I just don't see the point in that. So like if somebody wants to think out of the box and put something together like that, I'm all for it. But he definitely like, so at the end of the day, everybody was talking about it. It was sitting there. Everybody was taking pictures and videos. So mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned, right? Like they achieved what they were looking to achieve, I think.
I agree.
So props to them at the end of the day, right?
I agree.
The other thing that caught my eye, so I didn't see it later on throughout the show, but it was Monday. We picked up our credentials. We were walking around. It was the DeLorean sitting on the corner with a Ferrari engine in the back. And then, again, that's another build where you learn that it's not actually wired in. It's not plumbed. It's just sitting in there. So
it's funny.
And that was cool because it did get my attention, right? Back to the Future, the DeLorean, it's cool. Ferrari engine.
It's funny because I've seen that car, and lie to you not until I've seen a lot of the posts. Didn't even know there was a Ferrari motor in it. I didn't look at it that close. I mean, I've seen so many DeLoreans over the years. I don't want to say I got numb to it. I still got the love and respect for it, but I'm like, it's just another DeLorean. So I'm not going to lie, like I seen it, but I didn't walk up to it and, didn't even know the fact that there was a Ferrari motor in it until the social media. And I was like, oh, wow, I missed out on that one. I am guilty of, I like the highly customized stuff. I like the ingenuity, the creativity. If it doesn't catch my attention right away from the outside, I usually don't give it too much more thought.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I know we go to Cars and Coffee around here. There's a few DeLoreans floating around here. So I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong, but when I walked around the back and I did see the Ferrari engine sitting in there, I was like, all right, that's pretty damn amazing, But of course, disappointed immediately once you learn it's not running. So. And then you get folks, you got the Miata, you got the DeLorean, then of course the folks on social media start latching on, and they're like, oh, another car that doesn't run, that's at SEMA, and yada yada. And which, my point to SEMA again is everything we talked about earlier: the networking, the aftermarket tools, the technology, that kind of thing. So the builds are just there to accent those products, right?
Yeah, I think
So
it all
just, I don't
depends
know, you just
on.
get.
I'm sorry. I just think it all depends on your agenda. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point. Yeah, that's exactly the point I'm trying to make, right? Like, just focus and be there to network your business, or,
And I mean,
um,
for the people who are, veterans there, yeah, it's like anything. It gets a little watered down, but then for that aspect for me, it would be, what's the new stuff coming out? You want to stay on that cutting technology. I'm not the tech savvy dude like that, but I have to ante up, where I can.
again, the builds are there to accent. I mean, for the folks that have been going for a long time, I mean, they're there. I mean, there's the after parties, they're there to network, they're there to build a business. And without these shows, I mean, you and I wouldn't exist at the end of the day, right? So I'm trying to do everything I can to keep that going. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. I mean, I guess you need some of the haters there to kind of fuel, the passion a little bit too, right? I mean, I guess that's what balances it out, but you just get tired of hearing the same thing over and over on the internet. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you just want to ask the question, like, what did you build, or what are you doing to help the scene, at the end of the day?
exactly.
Let's talk about some of the cool stuff, the cars that actually did run. So I'm going to start diving into our top 10. And the cool thing about this is you and I didn't talk prior to. I was thinking, like, hey, maybe I should send Joe my top 10 list. That way it gives you kind of heads up of what we're talking to. But actually, I want to kind of go through this and see. So I know you already know this car because you and I touched on this a little bit. It was the 1987 Buick Grand National. That's Angelo Vespi's. That I mean, that car is beast, dude. Oh my god! I was just like, I came
Dude,
across, and let me tell you, man, the internet is absolutely going insane over this car, because that people are like, oh, it's just a Regal and they did an engine swap. They could have left the
yeah,
V6 in there. Why are they
nah,
using those wheels, and why are they doing this? And
dude, I
this
have.
post absolutely. I'm going to pull it up right now while we're sitting here. That is one of our CarShowz Choice Awards. So what I wanted to do is the social media post that I posted, because I shared it out on Instagram, uh, and it absolutely went bananas. So right now I'm pulling up the insights, the statistics, and that's got over 1.6 million impressions. Yeah, 1.6 million, 30 some thousand reactions. It's just going insane. So do you remember that build, Joe?
Yeah, I remember when I first looked at it, and I mean, as I'm looking at the car, um, I'm actually doing a little bit of ear hustling at the same time because the builder himself, was talking, and at that time I didn't, know who the builder was or the shop. And he was kind of explaining to another guy, the whole scenario and how we got to this point and this, that, and the other. And at the same time, I'm looking at every little detail of this car. And I'm like, man, this happened here and this happened here and they did this here. Normal stuff that people wouldn't even notice because it looks so like a natural body line or aspect. Look, car's phenomenal. It was. It really was.
Yeah, so I decided not to go any particular order when we chose our top 10, just because it would make it that much harder. But I mean, we got detailed pictures of this ride, and it was pretty insane. The cool thing is the power of social media. I was able to hook up with Angelo, or connect with him on social media. So that was kind of cool, and talk to him, and the owner of Dutch Boys Hot Rods. Actually, I was able to connect with them also, so we're sharing this stuff out.
Nice.
Um, so it's just kind of neat that's again another part of the networking, even for me, like on my side of the house, like you're there interacting with the actual suppliers and the businesses and such. And from a media standpoint, I do interact to a point, but then my whole thing is producing the articles and publishing, and then reaching out to the businesses and saying, here's what I produce, and here, I'm kind of putting you guys in the spotlight a little bit. Not that they really need it, because it's not like we're a huge publication or anything. But it helps and they appreciate it. So it's kind of cool to keep that networking going because like that's how we've made friends over the years and connected with folks.
Right.
Is there any particular build that stood out to you?
A few, but I think, I mean, the elephant in the room was one from, was it Blazer Rise of Chevelle, that one top choice. I mean, just looking at that car was completely futuristic. Um, I have taken note that, you know, 3D printing is a big thing with a lot of these companies, to stand out, as well as a CNC plasma cutting table. But like I said, just all the detail, the sheet metal work. Again, anything I'll look at it from a craftsman's point of view. Um,
That was that Doughboy that they're calling Doughboy, something like a 2,800 horsepower
yeah,
wide body.
yeah,
Yeah, that car
yeah.
was insane.
That car
Yeah,
was like next level futuristic. Um,
yeah, no,
but yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, there were a
Um,
lot there were a lot of cars
oh,
out there that really caught my attention. So honestly, I'm an import guy at heart. Um, I was amazed at a lot of the cars I've seen outside from Maryland that I was like, I've never seen that car.
Toyo tires was fire. That the Toyo. Let me say that 10 times fast. Toyo tires tread pass. That whole walk through there was insane.
Yes.
There was so much heat in there. And that was cool because all your imports, you got your BMWs, your Porsches. There was a Honda sitting in there. Like everything in there was beast. I mean, we spent a lot of time in there.
So did I. I actually
Yeah.
walked through it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Uh, I did. I actually walked through it 2 or 3 times.
Yep. So the Toyo tires, we got the Grand National. So the Grand National, the Angelo and Dutch Boys, they kind of they're calling it the GN XS, Grand National XS, and everybody's like hating on it because of the engine swap and such, and then of course the wheels, and it's but at the end of the day, the car's beast, and I see way more positive than the negative. So like
It's the
mission
next wave.
accomplished as far
Yeah.
as
It's the
yeah.
next wave.
The other build that stood out to me, and I actually followed it a bit on YouTube, was Georgia's her Toyota pickup mini truck.
Hmm.
So she has a YouTube series, and it's cool because Georgia, she has a Cutlass. She's in the lowrider side of the house, and does modeling, and but her YouTube series was actually pretty cool
Oh,
to
really?
watch. Yeah, the build out. You'll have to check it out. The build out of this truck, because it started from nothing, and then just the amount of details that are in that truck right now is pretty insane. Um, and of course, there's no bed on it, right? Because they're obviously they want to display all the work in the back, and there's just all the plumbing and such, and so everybody was kind of hating on that. Where's the bed? And it looks silly, and da da da, and the interior, and this and that. But I mean, like everything for this truck, I felt like it flows really well, and just it looks good. So I don't know if you had time to check that one out.
No, I
Um,
actually did.
oh, cool. Okay.
Seen a lot of the details. I'm impressed. I mean, I don't know too many people who are not into lowriders. As I've had a couple in my time. Um, Nothing to the level what they're doing, but I've had the whole lowrider deal. So
And that was in the Hopos Custom Suspension Works booth. There
yeah.
was the George's mini truck, and then there was another lowrider in there as well.
Oh, I actually, for me, it paid homage to. I was like, oh, even seeing it on the internet, I was like, oh, she paid homage to the 3-spoke Ontario wheels. I was like, I had a set of those, so that was
See,
cool too. Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah.
man, you date yourself now.
I'm like, yeah, for
the
the real OGs know that brand.
Yeah. The other cool thing is Jamie Silva. So her I guess husband, fiance. So he also built a truck, and he has a mini truck, and he had it sitting outside the central hall. So both of them got both their trucks to SEMA. So that was kind of cool to see as well.
Oh,
So,
okay, all right.
and I'll throw some pictures of that up here.
Yeah, I'm not. I may have seen that one and just didn't know it. But
I'm sure you probably came across it. And I'm almost willing to bet it caught your eye as well because it was pretty well done. Um, the other thing was the 1986 C10, the Hermano. So that was Alamo Customs. So this one was sitting in the North Hall. The color scheme on this truck caught my eye. It's got that like that kind of like that burnt orange with the tan, I guess.
hmm
Um, the interior was done by MTI. Joker Rod Shop did some stuff as well, mechanical wiring, metal fab. Alamo Customs, I'm familiar with their work because they're always down in Lone Star Throwdown, always have a big, booth and a
okay,
bunch of trucks on display. So they're beast. I mean, everything they bring to the show is fire. Like we're talking clean body lines and paint, and like their trucks are just perfect, at the end of the day.
hmm
So I'm always spending a lot of time in their booth, shooting their trucks and such. So yeah, this truck was just insane. Do you remember coming across this truck?
yeah, I did. Honestly, for me, it was actually nice seeing it in person. I followed it on the internet. The truck is, anybody who's in the scene, they're not unfamiliar with it. Doesn't matter what your passion is or what your trend is. A lot of these things you'll see.
And the truck was built. It was it's owned by Earl Brignac. So it was completed for him in honor of his younger brother that passed away. So it was a tribute to the younger brother.
Nice.
So that's just amazing to see a kick-ass build and then the meaning behind the build, right? And that's the cool thing about the automotive industry as well is there's always I love the stories, right? And that's the whole purpose of setting up this podcast is just learning the stories, learning how people tick, and people spend the time to watch the podcast. They learn, a little bit more about the industry or some things that we're talking about may help them, in the
hmm
future. So it was kind of cool to learn that the meaning behind this build as well. Let's see, what else do we have? There's the Premier Street Rods and Manufacturing Corporation. That name is known because they produce some fire builds as well. So there was the Ford F1 unibody dubbed Nightmare. I don't know if you remember that. It was black, sat outside, had the kind of like the Smurf blue interior.
Nah,
Do you remember seeing that?
nah, I didn't run across that one.
So the only thing I regret about this build is I caught it Monday. We saw it sitting outside. And for me, I was excited because it was cool because it was closed up. So I like to be able to capture some of the vehicles closed up, right?
hmm
But I didn't get a chance to see it opened up. So I didn't get the engine or the interior shots and such. So I'm kind of kicking myself for not trying to go back and find that later on. But I did see some pictures on the internet and like it's insane. It's a beast. It's a beast. So I'll put some photos up here so you'll be able to check that out as well. Let's see what else, Joe. What else do we have out there?
Well,
So I ran across. Oh, go ahead.
no, I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the other ones I've seen. Like I said, I was pretty impressed with a lot of the lifted trucks. Some of the crazy, what I would call concept ones. I can't think of the one what it was. It was a camouflaged carbon fiber in green, and he had the motor, the exhaust, everything in the bed of the truck, which was I'm looking at him like, how do you even do that? Like, how was that even
Oh, I do.
possible?
Was it the all carbon fiber one?
Yeah, it's like a
I think.
camouflage carbon fiber, tinted in green.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I did see it. I saw a couple of videos of it rolling in. Where was that sitting?
It's right outside. It was outside, near the mother's booth and everything else. I did grab some photos of it.
Okay.
Yeah, truck was pretty wild. The ingenuity, all of
Text
it.
me over some photos so I can put them up.
I sure will. Yeah, truck was
Yeah.
pretty wicked.
And I'm all like I like the wild stuff, but I also like the clean stuff, right? So in the JMD Tubes booth, I came across it was a Cadillac CTSV, and I'm like I don't know, I'm a sucker for CTSVs, man. Um, but this one was fire. I posted some pictures on this one. I don't know if you saw it, but even just all the tube work in the engine and the turbo sitting in the front and stuff, it just looked mean as hell.
Yeah, I did. I actually did video footage of it and sent it
Okay.
to my metal fabrication guy that works for me. And I also sent it to another friend who has a Cadillac CTSV, and I showed him it. That thing was was wild.
And it was so clean. It was murdered out, but it was just so clean. It sat right. The stance was right. I think it had some slicks, obviously, in the back, and the exhaust dumped out in the front, and the turbo
Yeah,
sitting there, like where the Cadillac grill, the Cadillac symbol would normally sit. And it just, man, it caught my attention. That's for sure.
I don't think it's kind of hard for it not to.
So let's go back to the Toyo Tread Pass, the Toyo Tires Tread Pass. There was the BMW E30, the tube chassis vert that was sitting there. Do you remember that? It was gray. Like it just stood out to me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I guess Cameron, he's on Instagram. I'll post up his Instagram or whatever. He does a lot of tube chassis work, and that's what caught my eye. Is just the roll cage and just how everything, obviously the tube chassis itself, it looked awesome, like a work of art, I guess.
Yeah, it was. I remember the car well. And actually, when I walked up on it, I'm not into the drift scene and that detail like that. But I was listening as to one thing when I'm at a show, you can always learn, no matter what the trend is. So I kind of listened, and he was explaining to him how the whole suspension setup was done, how it worked, how it operated, and I mean I looked at all this stuff, but I remember the car well.
A 1973 Pontiac Trans Am, and it was dubbed Hammerhead. That was so it was indoors, but it was a pro touring, like a pro touring setup. I don't know if you had a chance to see that ride.
No, I don't recall that one as far as myself.
I wish there was a way, like I bet you if we were doing this live, I could probably pop up a like share my screen or something.
Man,
I wish there was a way to do that, but
it's funny throughout the course of the week. A couple of the halls I walked through, because again I use the app, I use everything, and I was looking for specific booths as well. And I will walk back through that hall, and I'm like, hold on, I walked through here, and I didn't see this before. I didn't see this
exactly.
before.
Yeah. Attending SEMA previous years, we went through the wheels and accessories, hall or whatever, which it's cool because there's a lot of cool things in there.
Mm-hmm.
But this year I'm like, I want to go through Central Hall first. Like we had our kind of layout of what we wanted to do. And what sucked is being media, we get in a little earlier before the crowds, which is nice, right? However, the unveilings are not, obviously they're scheduled for later on that morning or whatever in the day, right? So there's stuff covered up and I didn't get to see it. So we walked through, got what we could. And then what we ended up doing is we came back another day and just circled back through after everything was unveiled or, whatever. And we caught Kindig, unveiling some things or his car. And
that was nice to see in person.
Yeah.
Very nice to see in person.
The Gallo 12 sitting in Toyo tires. Do you remember that? The V12 powered Toyota, what was it? Celica. The green, right? The green one.
What
do you think about that one?
Had several pictures of that vehicle.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there were some other things I picked out on the car that I'm not going to get into. But overall, I mean, impressive build.
Let's dive a little bit into it. What? Just give me a little.
Nah, I'm not. This is from
what would you change on it? Give me one thing you would change on
it. I'm not going to even get into that. I'm not even here for that. The build itself was impressive. It really was. There was just a lot of the other craftsmanship and body work and this, that, and the other that I definitely would have put just as much time as they did the motor.
That's fair. Did you make it to the Wagner tuning booth? There was one car that I shared out. And you know what the crazy part about it is? Like, as I'm going through and doing research, like towards the end of the show, like going to a lot of these websites, and I know what booths these cars were in or even who built the car.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a lot of content out there.
No.
Like it's just insane to me. Like, I'm like, so was it the Golf 2?
Yeah, that wide body Golf was.
Yep, it was the Golf 2.
Yes, that thing was.
And the turbo, was that a turbo mounted on the side to make it look like a gas mask?
Twins, yeah.
Gold?
Yes.
Okay.
Twins.
Yeah. What do you think?
Highly impressive. way out the box thinking because I'd have never thought about something like that. And again, that was another one that I took video footage of and posted up. Everything about that car was just like so right. And I'm not even a Volkswagen fan.
That Penix lowrider. That was outside. It was I don't know if it was the Renegade products booth or just a whole bunch of cars, but like Zach typically builds a lot of diesel, type builds and trucks and such, and they're down at Lone Star Throwdown, and so he built a lowrider, big ass blown, supercharged.
hmm I remember it.
You remember seeing that? Yeah.
Yep.
So that was crazy because watching that build, like it was literally up to the last minute to get it out to SEMA, and the cool thing is like he's posting pictures, I think it was Monday we got into town. I think they got into town around then, and it's sitting there like in a 3-wheel stance, so he got it running and everything's working. So that was kind of neat
Nice.
to see. And then at the end of SEMA, this is another little nugget for folks, and it kind of sucked for this year because the actual convention center was under construction, right? So next to the central hall, they had all kinds of craziness
hmm
going on there. The rollout parade would typically come out the main halls, and all the cars would parade out and usually go into the gold lot for SEMA Ignited. So this year we didn't stick around for it, and I was
Neither
told
did I.
it wasn't as impressive this year just because of all the construction going on, because I think it was like a short span of where people could stand and actually watch the rollout maybe. I saw some videos, but they said it just wasn't as impressive too because your backdrop is not as cool because all the construction going on and stuff too.
Yeah, I didn't stick around for it either. I mean, again, my first year there, I was more or less, I'm like, all right, I need to make sure I got back to the hotel in enough time. I had a super early flight out, 5:30 in the morning Vegas time. So yeah, I didn't even stick around for the cruise. But on the back end of it, literally all the way down to when I left, even into my hotel. I'm sitting in a restaurant, eating dinner, having a drink, and I met some very impressive dudes, even guys affiliated with Fat Bags, who we were all sitting down talking, and we did the business talk. They asked about me, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm not on the level of Fat Bags, but just the respect and the love shown from those guys was still equally impressive. So,
That's the Fat Fabs guys,
yep,
the guys that okay, yeah,
yeah,
they're beasts. I mean, those guys
yeah.
build some stuff, man.
I
Yeah.
know the company well. Like I said,
Yep.
I'm a follower of a lot of trends. But like I said, for me, it might be a little boring for other people, but I went in with a different eye for everything on the business side of it. That's what it was for me. There was so much respect and love, no matter what level of business you're in, or skills or this, that, and the other. Everybody was willing to share.
I mean, we covered so those bills that we went over are our top 10 choice. So we published what I ended up doing is I did like kind of an overview SEMA article before we left.
hmm
Because one of the things I like to do too is just make sure the web stuff, the technical side, right? That I know you don't care too much about, but the getting that stuff published, the search engine optimization, getting the stuff out there, that way when people are Googling, your stuff's going to pop up. That's why our website's done well over the years and such. So I published an initial article of just like, hey, here's some of the top things. Like Nitro Circus was out there, of course, the Skid Pad Von Gittin Jr. and the Burnout Pad and everything, and
hmm
some of the key events that were going on throughout the week. And then what I ended up doing is I have our top 10, have a photo and then a link going to each separate article for each of the builds that we featured. So some of the builds we just talked about. So I try to do that, and then of course I have our coverage. I think we had like 1,500 photos, and then I don't know, a couple hundred videos and such that we've been sharing out, and just trying to, I'm still sharing stuff out, which is it's fun, because I like to see the reactions of people and what, just like like you're going around and you're keying in on certain builds and the body lines, and I like to see what people like to see, I guess, and what they're commenting on. And I don't like the interior or those wheels, and so it's kind of neat to see that and what the trends
Right.
are.
Well, I mean, it's a growing industry as we're going through. We want to. Some of us will hope that our kids will follow the trends. But at the same time, this is how we keep it alive. So there's a business side of it, and then there's the enthusiast side of it.
Yeah,
Whichever way you go,
absolutely.
whichever way you go, it still adds to the industry. As far as being a car person, truck person, no matter what it is.
So we covered a good bit on SEMA, just in, I guess, everything from the builds to the layout to the transportation to some of the events going on in and around SEMA. What do you think of Vegas in general?
My,
Don't be shy.
I wasn't impressed. I really wasn't. It takes a lot to even impress me to begin with. But right from leaving the airport, I was like, okay, this is it. Um,
It's a
I was,
desert, man,
yeah,
with
I
some
was
buildings
like,
and lights, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, okay. I was like, I'm not impressed. I was like, this looks like a upscale. I'm from New Jersey. If you're from the New
Atlantic
Jersey area,
City.
Atlantic City, and I was like, Atlantic City is ratchet nowadays. So,
Nah.
no,
And if you venture a block or two off the strip, man, you better, yeah, you better make sure you're packing or something,
and
bro.
I
Like,
said the same thing. I said, this is
yeah.
an upscale version of Atlantic City because I said the same thing. I said, you venture off the wrong road, the wrong path, it can be ugly. Outside of the tourist areas, yeah, I wasn't impressed at all.
The first time I went out to Vegas, I went out for a conference for work, right? So completely not automotive related or whatever. And to be honest with you, like I was younger, it was years back or whatever, and I thought it was cool. It was grand, a bunch of hotels and just going in and out of the hotels. And then fast forward a few years and going back for SEMA a couple of times, doing the touristy things. I thought it was cool. But I think as I'm getting older, like I like my creature comforts, right? So like
Mhm.
everything's so damn expensive. I mean, we ate very well. Like we ate at Gordon Ramsay's steakhouse and Guy Fieri's restaurant, and we had Japanese sushi one night, and I'm just like, the prices were insane, man. And that's like, I knew going into it that it was going to be expensive, and I'm like, let's splurge. This is
Yeah, I wasn't on your level, but I did find me a couple of nice little barbecue spots. So,
I mean, no, and I'm not, it's not, because again, my wife, my youngest, I wanted to spoil them a bit, right? But I'm gonna be honest, man, I'm like, if I never go back to Vegas again, I will probably be okay with that. Like F1, I think just dampened everything just because, like, again, you're walking up and down the strip and you're seeing scaffolding and, the traffic's stupid and going in and out of the casinos. Like, cause that's what we did the one year. We did a bunch of touristy things and, we went up to the Venetian and did the gondola ride and going over to the Bellagio to see the fountains and, just going in and out of the casino, like the cigarette smoke.
the one morning, early morning, on my walk through the Golden Nugget to get to the shuttle, I'm looking at one guy at the slot machine, and I had to had to double back and look. And lo and behold, it was, I can't think of the guy's name, but he is the parts guy at Extensive Texas Metal. So I kind of tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry to bother you. I was like, you work over at Extensive Texas Metal? He's like, yeah. I was like, dude, I just want to shake your hand. Nice to meet you. I mean, for me, a lot of these guys that you meet in person that are TV celebrities, they're pretty humble. I know others that
Yeah, they're
aren't.
people just like us,
Yeah,
you
they're
know?
pretty humble,
Yeah.
which was great.
Yeah. I think for me, the location, we stayed in the Paris again. There was a bunch of SEMA people that stayed there and they were all cool, but they also had the Marine Corps ball. They had, there was softball tournament people. Like it was just crazy crowded. And I think, like, for me, if I had to do it all over again, I would probably do an Airbnb somewhere out or pick a hotel that's not as popular or something. The last few times that I went, it was not this crazy, not this mobbed, but it is what it is. I mean, we still had a great time. The hotel was okay, like it I felt like it could have been a little cleaner. Of course, like the shower, they try to get fancy with the walkout showers and such, but of course, like every day we had water all over the floor because it leaked and just stupid stuff like that. I'm like, and I think for me, it's the expectation of, like, we work hard, right, for our money, and and if we're going and putting out this money, I my expectation is it's going to be comfortable and we're not going to have to deal with the crap all week, or whatever. So that's just probably me getting old and grumpy, and maybe just having a setting that bar pretty high. But I guess the whole point of that is not me complaining. I enjoyed the trip. We're creating memories with the family. But at the end of the day, I guess, as you're planning your trip, just, make sure you look at all your resources across the board. Like you stayed over, near Fremont Street, Old Vegas. I stayed on the strip, making sure you get the transportation worked out, plan your routes for the show, and look, there are good deals around, in and around Vegas, uh, to stay in a hotel or Airbnb.
Oh yeah.
So that's just the point I wanted to make. Let's talk about so I mean we're going, I guess we're over an hour now because I have two sessions chopped up here. Let's let's just dive a little bit into your, I don't want to take too much of your time this evening, but let's talk a little bit about your current project. Your current build.
I got a few. One that's been a long time project. It was actually supposed to debut at SEMA. A friend of mine, from California had it set up for a booth, Icebox Customs, but it just didn't make it. A lot of setbacks, not, from me, but just from other avenues people have to deal with. But it's a 2002 Honda Odyssey, VIP inspired build, on little steroids. It's, turbo motor. There's one thing that everything on it's been one off custom built. So actually still working on it. Uh, 2025 is the year for it. It's, it's ready for paint. It's ready for this. It's ready for that. This is all the mechanical stuff that's holding it up right now. It's one of the flagship builds for the shop. And I'm actually making this a whole family affair. So I'm not only doing my build, I have an '07 Accord, which is the wife's car. And then I have my two youngest sons who are gearheads that, we're currently into. So it's going to be a whole, flagship deal for the company.
That's cool. It's going to be fun. It's fun to include your family and also, as you have that experience and expertise over the years in the industry, but it's cool to kind of get their input on what they like and the elements that they want to add into the build. So that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I talked to, I mean, like, again, it's a flagship build. So I talked it up a lot at this year's show. I showed a lot of pictures of it, and it gets that buzz already. Unfortunately, I have to break out of my comfort zone and do a lot more social media stuff because I've shown it to several people, and they're like, "That's crazy for a minivan." Like just the whole entire build, how everything flows. Looking forward to it. I can't wait to get it done. I never name any of my cars. It just hasn't been in my thing, but this one has a name. And the name for it is Perseverance.
Okay. All right.
That's the name for it, Perseverance.
It's got a bit of your personality in there, huh?
Well, that, just the history of it.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears, setbacks. I mean, just everything. The name fits the bill well.
Couple more questions for you. Let's talk about let's give some advice for the younger version of you, knowing what you know now, right? So you've been doing this for a minute. You've dealt with a lot of personalities throughout the industry, good and bad, whatever advice for the younger enthusiasts that are up and coming. So basically that can segue into what obstacles you have faced also, and kind of the lessons learned. So I guess you can kind of put together a summary of what your advice and then some of the obstacles you have faced and like how have you overcome them? That could be from a business standpoint, from an organization or just dealing with people in general or, whatever you want.
Just follow your dreams. I'm still learning that. Follow your dreams. There's going to be a lot of setbacks. There's going to be a lot of disappointments. The people who you genuinely thought were on your team always have a hidden agenda. I mean, I've been there, done that, to the point it spiraled me into just not even caring anymore about the industry. But my heart has always been there, and that's why I'm back now. Keep your ideas to yourself. Let your actions and your creations speak for you, and just go from there.
So I want to touch. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to touch on that a little bit about the just dealing with folks in general and their agenda, and then just the energy it takes out of you, right? Like I can't tell you how many times like I'll tell my wife just because the even just the technical side of running websites and managing social media and just it's a competition. I the funny thing is, I mean, and it's competition, but my mindset is like, hey, why can't we collaborate or work together and network, right? And I go into it with that mindset because I feel like it's a win-win, right? There's no to me, there's no reason to keep my knowledge and my skills and my experience to myself. I want to open up and be able to share it because it should be a two-way street, and I should be able to learn from you as well as you learn from me, right?
Mhm.
And I think you and I are similar to, like we talked a little bit about this earlier. We're similar to the point where, we want to be able to help each other, right? Period. And folks that have their own agenda and they're, you're constantly giving, 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 and they're taking, 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 but they're not giving anything back. How do
Mhm.
we deal with that? And it's and as you're thinking about that, I want to say this from a business perspective, right? And you know this as well as I know, and I know it as well just from the media side. If you shut down, you're not keeping up with the game. You're left out. Like it's that right. Like if you're not keeping up with stuff, they're like they don't feel sorry for you, right? So how do you balance that, right? How do you balance the networking and others their agendas, but yet you want to continue to be able to contribute, but balance it to the point where you're still staying involved and relevant in the scene?
Yeah, it is a balance. Again, like I said, I've been through that and I completely shut down, got out of it completely, period. And yeah, I had to come back, um, rebuild, get back into the game, get the
What's the
reputation.
motivation for coming back?
It's what I do. It really is.
It's the not giving up.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I do. Like, yeah, I gave up on that side, but um, I'm not just a car enthusiast. Like, I really don't know how to put it into words. So,
Uh, but I wouldn't say you gave up, right? I would say the fight's in you because the fight's always been in you because I know you, right? I think you just reevaluated, and I think that's what we're talking about. I think that's the I just kind of answered my own question. I'm not taking words out of your mouth, right? Help me
right.
out here. It's reevaluating and figuring out how to come back stronger and making sure we're not leaving ourselves exposed, our vulnerabilities to where people can take advantage. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So I wouldn't say
For
you gave up.
maybe I didn't, but yes, I'm
Nah.
very much more aware. Even up until this very day, a lot of people may not hear about me, but I'm growing. I've been looking at bigger buildings and still experiencing the same thing. People who have their own agenda. The exception is my eyes are a lot. I'm wide open. I'm looking, and I've backed out a couple deals. Yeah, it's hard.
I think for me the lesson's always been like there's always assumptions, right? Like so whenever like I've had, people in the past contribute to car shows, right? And I tell them from the beginning, I'm like, look, your compensation is going to be based on what you contribute at the end of the day, right? And I
Hmm.
grind, and my wife can tell you, I do, and I know you do as well.
Hmm.
If you're putting in the work, you're doing the research, you're trying to research the technology, you're keeping the websites updated, you're doing things right. And as folks come in and they want to be a part of that, I'm like, yes, by all means, but you're going to put the work in and you're going to be compensated based on that.
Hmm.
The assumption from them is, though, they're going to come in, they're going to shoot a show, they're going to take about 30 pictures, send them over. They're not editing them, they're not doing anything, but yet they expect now they're going to become a photographer and they expect media credentials to all these big shows and SEMA and Carlisle. And, so the expectation from their standpoint is just so skewed, and I try to lay it out from the beginning. I'm like, look, here's how it is, and here's how it's going to be moving forward. Right. And I'm
Hmm.
going to be honest with you. There's so many relationships that that have been soured over that, right? Because they look at me as like, hey, what do you mean? I covered the show for you. No, you went to the show, you got media credentials, and you talk to your friends the entire time, and you sent me over 30 cell phone pictures that are unedited. Like, what am I supposed to do with that, right? People need to understand, and I think this is applicable across the board between what I do, what you do, and just automotive industry in general, is the time, effort, and energy that you put in, then you're going to be able to get something in return, right? So if you're
Yeah.
only going to put in a small ounce of effort, then that's what you're going to get back, right? So like, people are looking at me. I literally, Joe, had an argument last night from some guy from the UK because he takes our pictures, he saves our pictures, reposts them to his social media, and tags us, right? So I went on his page, and I just got tired of it. And like, it's literally like all of our coverage photos from SEMA. He's done it from Lone Star Throwdown and such. And a couple photos here and there, I kind of ignore it because I'm like, whatever, okay, fine. He left the watermark on there and he tagged us, right? But like, it gets like, that's his entire page. He goes and steals everybody's photos and just shares them out on his page. So I commented back and I said, "Hey, I would prefer, can you just reshare our coverage or reshare our photos, and instead of taking our photos?" And he messaged me and he didn't like that. So him and I had a good debate, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't an argument. I wasn't going to stoop, or anything. I was just like, look, I was polite. I didn't like blast you and call you names or anything on your page. I just asked. I said there was no message feature available where I can message you. I said, probably because I'm not following you. If I was following you, maybe that feature would be available. That's why I didn't message you. That's why I posted.
Right.
But he still didn't understand what he was doing wrong. Like, he just absolutely didn't get it. He's like, well, I tagged you, and I've been doing this for a while, and well, okay, you've been stealing my photos for over a year, and you think that's okay? Like, so anyway, it's the mindset that blows me out of the water, I guess.
Yeah, it's
And that's the agenda of some people, right? Some people just don't think they're doing anything wrong.
yeah, industry is different nowadays. Even on my aspect of it from work, I mean, I can go back to the days to where, we worked 2 or 3 jobs to get that one bill done. Nowadays, they just want to hand it to them. Yeah, I've been down that road as well. And I mean, I might be going off the grid a little bit, but, as far as pictures being used, work being taken, I've had so many bills that never even got credit for, ever. But they're plastered all over the internet.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously the scale of you putting the time, effort, and energy to work on a build for, months up to years or whatever, right? Versus me. I mean, the scale of that, I understand, is different, right? Completely different. But like, I think, like, I'm looking at it from even just, I guess, big picture too. Well, I guess it's kind of relevant, right? Because the amount of money I'm spending for equipment, the time and energy and money I'm spending to actually travel to go to these events, time and energy we're spending to edit, post on our social media platforms and website. And then you got a guy literally in 30 seconds can save your photo, reshare it out, tag us, and call it good. So that it pisses me off, right, at the end of the day. And that, but again, I think the driving factor for me is like, if it wasn't for this industry, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met all the people and friends that I have right now. So that's the driving factor of going to these events, listening to people's stories, learning. I'm always learning new things, right? Just car stuff in general, or
Hmm.
technology, or even just the media side. So I think that's the driving factor for me. So what is it
Not,
for you? What makes it tick for you?
um, the energy, number one, the people. Again, this right here really just re-energized me. I came back after 5 days, feet hurting, blisters, yada yada yada. But I caught a little huddle meeting with my team that I deal with on a Sunday, the very next day after SEMA. This is the new plan. This is what I want to do. This is that. So it's the energy. And now, my 2 youngest sons are in the cars and they're building their own portfolio with their little friends. And yeah, they got a little bit of an advantage. They always get told that, well, your dad does this, your dad that you got a whole full shop at your disposal. Yeah, well, okay.
Take advantage of that, though, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's, it's Okay. I mean, that just means others have to work harder, I guess, right? I mean, got to be hungry, you know?
They are. It's not handed to them. They
Yeah.
work just as hard.
I think that kind of sums it up really in the question. We answered the question. Branching out, kind of getting out of your bubble, like you're getting out of your comfort zone, right? Being able to dive into the technology, like you're doing podcasts. And, I've said that we had that conversation actually in SEMA, right? At SEMA, you and I talked. So it's funny, we're on the other side of the states and we're having conversations, and it's like, but we live, what, 20
Like
minutes
30,
away.
yeah, 20, 30 minutes away.
Yeah. But you and I talked about that, right? And I've mentioned it, and even for me, the past few years, it was just kind of getting out of this area and going and seeing other things, going to other events.
That is the goal, especially for Streamline Customs. I mean, East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Maryland area, DMV. That's my home. That's where I've been. Uh, but for me, it's also, I want to say, and not say it's a bit cliquish. So I'm trying to get out. And I mean, for the company Streamline Customs, I have been buying all the ingredients. Not only just the equipment. I got a medium duty truck, 50-foot, 3-car trailer. Like our plans is to move up and move out. So that's the deal. And this right here solidified it for me even more. People from Midwest, West Coast, overseas, like we all sat down and we talked, and it was just about either business or just the different personalities and cultures of the type of cars we build.
Yeah, and I mean, even something, just traveling like the West Coast down south. I mean, the weather's nice, so their seasons last a little longer for the car scene, and like I just feel so like left out, right? Because we're up here and it's cold, and their cars and coffee is kind of sort of going on still, and industry is booming, in these other right West Coast down south, and I'm just like, man, even just some of the photographers that are shooting some of these events, or they'll go to these events and they'll set up separate shoots off to the side because they're shooting for magazines and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, there's some cool spots out here, but it's not like the West Coast. It's just so different, when the weather's
Don't get
nice.
me
And
wrong, though. Maryland has some beautiful scenery. Really
oh,
does.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of beast cars out here too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, but that's just the thing, right? So, I give you an example, shooting for the Eastwood calendar, right? So, there's cars that come to that calendar shoot that have never been out of their garage. And I'll talk to the owners, and I've been around here for a minute, you've been around here for a while, and I'm
Hmm.
telling you, the next time I do that shoot, I'll have you come through, and there's going to be, I mean, there's 100 cars that come through there, and I guarantee you a good high percentage of them you've probably never seen. And some of the owners, I'm like, hey, are you local? And they're like, yeah, I'm just right up the street. And I'm like, well, how come we never see you out at any of the events? And they're like, I don't pull the car out. Like, okay. So I'm like, yes, absolutely, to your point. I mean, it's like, if you, but it's I think it's those people, the hermits, right, that are that are home. You gotta find them, and maybe figure out a way to get it. Hey, can I shoot you a ride, or and find some of these. But my point is like there's just so much work, that's involved in trying to, whereas some of these folks
To
on
get
the
them
on the
together,
West
yeah.
Coast are going to these events, and there's I don't know, 300 cars that show up at Cars and Coffee just because it's nice out and they're hanging out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not trying to smash on the East Coast. I love the East Coast, born and raised here.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like the energy and the work is, you got to put it in, I guess is my point.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with branching out and checking out some other areas, right? To be able to expand your brand, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Which is what we're doing.
All right, one last question I got to ask is, if money was not a factor, what would be your dream car, truck, and why? And I'm not talking about a custom build, but I'm just talking about like something you can go and purchase, from the showroom floor.
Pagani.
Oh yeah?
A Pagani.
All right. You're going to give me a
Yeah.
ride, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get there one day. But a Pagani, it's dude, just I mean, it's a Pagani. What can you not say about those? It's the
Body
styling,
lines.
the
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
lines, the ambiance of it. Like it's it's not a car; it's intimacy.
Yeah. The
It really
engineering is
is.
just, yeah. Yeah. It's
Yes,
insane.
a Pagani.
All right. All right. I got you. I got you. Um, all right. Lastly, shout outs. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
Well, first
Family,
of all,
businesses.
nah, first of all, CarShowz, we go,
Hey.
and nah, real talk, we go a long ways. I will,
Appreciate you, big bro.
no, I will never, ever, ever forget the random phone call, ever. It may not have been nothing for you. Um, it was something for me. I think I've proven that over the years. So
Yeah.
definitely CarShowz. You know me, I support. Of course, my buddy, Lorenzo from Icebox Customs on the West Coast. There's a handful of people, to this day. Jason Mosley from JM Exclusive, um, and of course, family, wife, kids. But yeah, that's it's what's bringing me back alive right now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, just stay focused, have a plan, which it seems you have, and you do have people, in your corner. I always have your back, that.
Oh yeah, oh
Um
yeah,
I I'm excited to see the future for you and to see the build. Make sure that we got to link up cuz I want to get a photo shoot of that build when it's done or the build
yeah. I
whenever,
know it's the longest build of my life.
Hey, yeah. Getting it right though, got to get it right.
Well, wasn't so much that. It'll be right. Just priorities. A lot of things
Some
happen.
obstacles. Yeah, for sure.
Life, growth, and life, this, that, and the other. So, full focus 2025. It will be out. No ifs, ands, or buts. But yeah, no, really, it's. I got a few people in my corner right now. Like I said, CarShowz is definitely one. Not because we're doing this interview, but we go way past that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right, Joe. I appreciate your time. We spent a good over an hour, man. So I think this was good. I mean, just talking about SEMA, the future, your builds. We'll have you on to feature your builds too when they get finished up. I'm excited for that.
Yep.
So thank
Next.
you so much for your time, brother.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you.